Welcome to Storytime with Camilla, with Carmilla Voyez. This evening I'm going to be reading a short story I wrote for a publication by Weird Punk Books and Clash Publishing, Zombie Punks Fuck Off. A brilliant collection, well worth checking out. My story in there is called Eat the Rich, and it's about weaponised homeless people in order to fight the class war in London. Eat the Rich by Camilla Voyez. Hope you enjoy it. Sally's call sounded desperate and confused. I pedalled as quickly as I could to the crumbling multi-storey car park. It was deserted as usual, not a tourist hotspot. If cars didn't get damaged by falling chunks of concrete, they would be stripped of their tyres within an hour of parking. I was surprised it hadn't been gentrified like the rest of the city, but no doubt that was someone's plan for the future. They were on the basement level, Hazmat's gallery, more talented than Banksy, but as yet undiscovered. As always, I felt awe when I saw his work. A new piece had been started, a Dr. Martin boot kicking something that looked like a pig's head in a riot's helmet. The blood spray looked particularly realistic. Sally and Hazmat, my best friends and comrades. They accepted my weirdness, and I loved them for it. Sally had a sort of post-punk goth look, with half her head shaven, and the other half a jungle of back-combed black hair, set off by her Cleopatra-style, coal-smudged eyes. Hazmat was more your original 70s punk, green mohawk and black leather jacket. And me? I guess I was hard to explain. Sally knelt beside Hazmat, pressing a cotton dressing against his cheek. She glanced up at me and tried to focus her eyes. "It's me," I assured her. "He's in bad shape, Grinch," Sally answered, her pierced lips curling into a worried smile. "What happened?" Hazmat tilted a bottle of cider against his lips. "They're in worse shape," he claimed proudly, nodding towards his crumpled sleeping bag. I spotted 3 skinheads beneath the filthy, once red nylon bedding, their necks and arms covered in vile fascist tattoos, deep blood-encrusted caverns in their racist skulls. Fucking Nazis. "They attacked him while he was painting," Sally said. "He did that with his sodding paint can." "Did they cut his face?" I asked. "Bit it," Hazmat said. "Fucking animals." "Animals, nah. Humans were much worse, especially the fash. He should go to hospital, but he won't. I've given him some meds, and I'll get some more. He can't stay here, though. He needs somewhere cleaner." "My couch is a bit cleaner, I guess," I said. "It's cleaner than mine," she agreed. "Let's take him there. What about them?" "We'll tidy up, then set fire to the bodies. No one gives a fuck about a few dead Nazis. It's a bloody public service disposing of them," I said, meaning each word. "Love your new mural, Haz. The blood looks very real." "It's theirs." His head bobbed forward. Cider, and whatever drugs Sally had administered, must have been working their magic on him. Immobile spikes of jade green crowned his exhausted head. My fucking hero. I thought he was going to die. It seemed wrong not to take him to hospital, even though he forbade it. Sally made sure he had the right antibiotics and pain relief, probably stronger than he would have got at Newham General. Who'd have known drug dealers made such great doctors? He was hallucinating and sweating profusely for 36 hours before his fever broke. When it did, he looked older, thinner, and impossibly pale. "Nah, he's all right," Sally said. "I know people who would die for a pallor like that." I snorted. "How are you feeling, Haz?" "Like a fucking zombie," he said. "You just need to eat something," Sally told him. "I'll grab a few chips." "Reckon I need some meat," he said. I felt like I might vomit. "No meat," I told him. "Not in my house, you asshole." Love would only permit so much. Eating animals under my roof? Not fucking likely. Sally seemed more sympathetic. "Maybe it's an iron deficiency. I'll see what I can get." Okay, but no meat, I mean it. I know you do, Grinchy Poo. I solemnly promise never to bring the carcasses of slaughtered animals into your home. Grinchy Poo. I let it go. She was one of a tiny number of people I didn't want to punch. Since I'd been taking the tea, that had become a rare thing indeed. A fact that should probably have worried me more than it did. She brought him the dark green salad leaves and beetroot, but he spat out the first and only mouthful. He shook his head. Fuck, I can't do it. Something's wrong with me. It's more than hunger. I dreamed terrible things. I dreamed of cracking skulls and shoveling down their contents. Sal, this bloody bandage itches. Can you take it off? Let me look, Sally said. She peeled back the cotton gently, then gasped. What is it? Hazmat and I said in unison. She didn't speak, so I took a look. Bollocks. What? Hazmat said. What is it? Is it bad? Is it infected? It's healed, I whispered. Surely that can't be possible. Sally shook her head. He shrugged. I feel really restless. I need to get out of here. I want to fight, and I'd rather it weren't with you, Grinch. I'm sure I could take you anyway. He laughed. A bunch of us are sabotaging a hunt this afternoon. I was going to bail, with you sick and all, but if you're feeling better, plenty of rich wankers to punch while we wait for the next Nazi to come along. Direct your anger where it counts. Hazmat grinned. His eyes shone in a way that would give me nightmares. They were there with rifles, dogs and horses, the arrogant bastards. We shouted, threatened and generally got in the way. It was an impasse, and it frustrated the hell out of the hunters. They were used to getting their way, and looked like they'd be happy to shoot us all, punks, anarchists, and hippies alike. Hazmat was bristling. It wasn't only the hair of his mohawk that stood on end. I could tell he wanted action. I felt just as excited. This was class war, and animal rights activism rolled into one delicious bundle. One of them felt brave enough to approach. We faced off, him with his rifle, us with our righteous anger. I felt Hazmat lurch beside me. I touched his arm, and he rewarded me with a deep scratch that drew blood. He pounced. I never imagined a human being could jump like that. The riding hat flew into the trees, and Haz dragged the rich bloke to the ground. His skull cracked open like an eggshell. I couldn't see much of the attack as Hazmat's muscled torso blocked my view. It was only when he got up again, blood dripping from his mouth and covering his Eat the Rich t-shirt, that I saw the devastation. I vomited, doubled over. I heard screams all around me. People fled, dogs growled, horses panicked and kicked out, dislodging their riders. The sound of bones crunching replaced the screams of terror, and I fell unconscious. I was back in my bedsit when I came to. Hazmat had showered and dressed in clean clothes. For a blissful moment I laughed at the vividness of my dream. Of course it hadn't been real. Hazmat didn't just eat someone. Ridiculous. This wasn't Hollywood. It was East London. My arm itched. I tried to scratch it, but there was a bandage in the way. What's this? I asked. Sorry, mate, Hazmat said, looking ashamed. I think I scratched you. Sally patched you up, but it's a bit yellow and smells rotten. She asked me to give you some antibiotics when you woke up. I didn't tell her about what I did at the hunt. Do you think I should? Those toffs tasted so good, mate. You ate them. Bollocks, I thought. Shit. And you wanted me meat-free. They were probably free-range, though, Grinch, and I only ate part of them. Which part? Their brains. I'm a zombie, aren't I? Disease. Nazi scum bites me, and now I'm the living dead. Hazmat sniffed. Well, fuck it. I always said I wanted to eat the rich. He handed me the pills. Does this mean I'll be like you? He shrugged. I don't fucking know how it works, mate. Sorry, though, it looks pretty deep. Are you in pain? I shook my head. It just itches. I swallowed the pill. Like my face. 36 hours later, I was hungry for brains. It sucked, but there were ways I could turn this to my advantage. I sprayed up my white quiff and pulled on my favourite striped jeans. I filled the pockets with as many coins as I could find around the bedsit. Admittedly, it was no fortune, but all I needed was an inn. Then I headed out into the city. You don't have to look for long in London to find those of our brethren without roofs over their heads. The great ignored. I'd often considered them a potentially unstoppable army come the revolution. My idea, if it worked, would just bring the revolution a lot closer. The first poor bastard stank of piss. The ammonia hurt my nose, but out of respect I refused to show any signs of repulsion. I sat next to him on the shallow front step of a Georgian townhouse with 12 doorbells. He looked at me coolly. "Are you a boy or a girl?" he asked. Always the same question. "Neither," I answered, "but I could be your power animal. I can make you so strong you can take everything you need from those rich wankers who pass you by with their noses in the air." "Are you some sort of pervert?" I laughed, only as much as the next person, I guessed. "Let me get you a coffee and you can listen while you warm your belly. You got a deal. Don't skimp on the sugar, though." It didn't take as long as I expected to convince him. I suppose he had nothing left to lose, and the thought of paying back in kind all the cops who had kicked or pushed him around sold him on my idea. I scratched his hand and left him with antibiotics. I would have preferred to gather my army in a large shelter, but that wasn't within my means, so I gave him the address of Hazmat's basement gallery and asked him to meet me there the following evening. As I walked away towards my next recruit, I hoped he'd survive the night. It pained me to know what people would let me do in exchange for a hot beverage. Lack of shelter and regular food dehumanised people, and many of those I spoke to seemed to have lost all sense of self. Each day was just about survival. To them, avoiding violence and eating the scraps they were given. This in a city where one-bedroom apartments sold for millions. It was obscene. I bought dozens of coffees and administered almost as many scratches. I could only bring myself to do it with their consent. It would be like pyramid selling, I reckoned. First I scratch 10 per day, then each recruit converts 10 per day, and within a week we'll have 20,000 super strong zombie soldiers. After they turned, the zombies hung out together in the abandoned car park, getting increasingly hungry and frustrated. There were the inevitable casualties, but if I might be allowed to say it myself, it was fucking awesome. I made Hazmat very proud, an outcast army eager to wreak havoc and destruction, a nihilist's wet dream. In my mind, we were simply soldiers in the class war, and we would all be tested in battle the following evening. Thousands of bodies swarmed together along the city streets towards the palace, like one homogeneous mass with a hive mind. It was more than a mob. It was a life. Police in riot gear mobilised quickly and blocked the road ahead, 20 or more rows deep. They weren't taking our march lightly. I'm sure they intended to provoke the peasants into violence and arrest our asses. Be careful what you wish for. I felt no fear. I was indestructible. Hazmat and Sally on either side, no longer strictly vegan, but with a very specialised diet. We were demanding our human right to food, shelter and dignity. It was immaterial that our dietary requirements were human brains. Beyond the armoured pigs, great gates stood before Buckingham Palace, an ostentatious symbol of our oppression when we were still human. Once their riot helmets had been removed, the police would be zombie food, followed by the Queen's Guard. We would eat well this evening. We would climb the gates, supported by our comrades, and swarm into the property. God save the fucking Queen from us. The juddering of rubber bullets and live ammunition asked a question. How dare you come here? I could smell victory in the cranial fluids that washed down every mouthful of grey matter. I was dining on pork for the first time in over a decade. Bloodlust rose inside me, and I tore helmets, often with heads still attached, from the Metropolitan Police's shoulders. We bathed in a shower of gore, the zombie punks, the militarised homeless, and the rest of the hooligans. La Terreur in Paris over 200 years before could not have tasted more sweet. The guillotine could not have been a more efficient executioner than our arms and teeth. Hazmat grinned at me as he separated another cop from its helmet. I grinned back, then shrugged. Hey guys, tomorrow we're homeless, tonight it's a blast. Oh, we're living in a fucking palace, Sally whispered in my ear. I was shoved with a riot shield and knocked into my friend. She fell backwards, landing on her ass. I tried to reach for her, but she shook her head and laughed. All good here, she shouted. Carry on. She sprang to her feet and slammed forward like she was in a mosh pit. Fucking punks. I loved them all to bits. You couldn't keep them down, alive or undead. Armoured vans, water cannons and SWAT teams descended on Green Park and St James's Park as we munched through the riot police and clambered over gates. Busbies, red jackets and bayonets charged at us, some blades reaching their mark and felling us, others aiming ineffectively at our chests. Behind us, bullets whizzed through the air, hitting our backs and limbs. Water tried to knock us off our feet, but made the Queen's soldiers fall on their asses instead. We descended on them like starving wolves, sating more than hunger as bloodlust rose in each zombie. My phone beeped, so did 100 others. I fished into my jeans and pulled it out. Smeared blood across the screen. Emergency message: for their own safety, everyone must return to and stay in their homes until further notice. Was it just London on shutdown or all over the country? I screamed with excitement. A stupid grin plastered across my face. I glanced around. Those human comrades who were still alive looked afraid. This was no normal riot. I watched them flee, invariably ending up caught and loaded into police vans. I wondered whether anyone would believe the stories they'd tell. I wondered how many of us would survive this night. I wondered why I didn't care. I had enough to care about. The hiss of skin tearing from muscle, the smell of blood and intestines, hot viscera hitting my face. I closed powerful jaws around parietal bones and heard them crack as I exerted pressure. Blood hit my throat first, then the spongy mush of cranial matter. 1,000 electrical pulses shot around my head like a lightning ball, and energy surged through neurons to every nerve ending, making me shiver deliciously. I hooked fingernails under broken bits of skull to remove bone fragments and plunged my face into the makeshift bowls to dine. Over and over again, each experience seemed new and unique, each taste sublime. I lost myself. My intellect fled and I forgot where I was. The doors gave way under our combined pressure and I darted through red and gold rooms, between portraits and mirrors, and arches full of skylights. I followed the scent of blood and human sweat, the sound of beating hearts. The gaudy gold and ugly paintings couldn't hold my attention. I only wanted to feed again. I heard the rotary blades of a helicopter. Blindly I ran, tearing my way through drapes and panelled doors, relying on my senses of smell and hearing. Others moved with me. Although I couldn't recognise their faces in my rage, I knew they were of my kind and would not provide me with my next meal. The helicopter noise retreated. It was airborne, presumably taking humans to safety, but some remained. I could smell them, hear them whimper. Smoke rushed into the room. It tasted like vinegar and made me screw up my face. I retreated from the doors, past rows of chairs and towards the dais and thrones. Boots hit the floor hard, echoing between walls. Plastic shields taller than me pushed through the ornate archway and gathered to form a wall. Behind them, insect-like gas masks and helmet-mounted torches glared at me. I fled to a door on my right and out of the room, chased by the sounds of dozens of rubber soles hitting marble. This room was filled with a slow rolling mist as well. I'd encountered it before. Last time it made my eyes burn, my nose run, and my chest threatened to implode. This time it was just a nasty smell that overwhelmed all other scents. With my ears full of footsteps and my nose full of tear gas, I had no idea where the whimpering humans were hiding. Other zombies ran blindly through the corridor, equally disorientated. I recognised Hazmat as he stumbled over to me, his right foot bent at a strange angle. I pulled his arm over my shoulders and hurried him along. The palace was a warren of hundreds, perhaps thousands of rooms. The mist had permeated all of them. It was time to get out. A security camera followed our movements as we lurched into a room I hoped would lead to an outer wall, but again the only windows were far above us. I was sick of the place, of the smell, of the sounds, and the gold shining everywhere, but we were so lost. More doors, more rooms, yellow this time, and at last tapestry drapes on the far wall. Together, Hazmat and I hit through the window with an ornate chair that shattered into pieces as it hit the glass. I grabbed a candelabra and used it as a battering ram. The pane splintered and we took it in turns to kick at the weak spot, until at last the window smashed and we climbed out. There were soldiers here too. They pounded us with bullets as we ran to the wall. It was high, but I'd seen Hazmat leap and was sure we could make it. We threw ourselves at the unforgiving stone and clawed our way to the railings at the top. I looked back and saw piles of the dead. Retreat and regroup, that was the plan. I hoped Sally would make it out. Smoke filled the skyline and sirens wailed in every direction. The idea of fleeing for safety seemed ridiculous now. Instead, we headed towards Downing Street. London was burning and we were hungry. It would be one hell of a barbecue.